hey there everyone. Welcome on into VG Emporium, video game music and more. I'm your host Rage Cage, and today I'm going to be talking about some games that I really liked playing through 2023, which is actually something pretty special because it's been a few years since I've actually played like multiple games throughout a year because, within the last 10 years or so, I'd get like one game and then, play through that and then kind of take a break from things and, the next year, the next one would come up, be like, play that. And yeah, that's how I did it until I got a Switch for my friends on December of 2022. And, of course, that opened up just the floodgates of just being able to play wherever I wanted instead of being, linked down to my computer. Because before I got the Switch, the most recent console I owned was the Sony PSP. And I know, you're saying the PSP was a handheld, but, if you had played Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker on that thing, that might as well have just been a console. But yeah, getting the Switch was basically opening up a floodgate. So, having the opportunity to play a lot of these newer games that I thought I'd never play, as well as some older ones that were ported over to the Switch, like, let's say, No More Heroes, which, granted, I would have been able to emulate the Wii version via Dolphin, or even play it on Steam. But now I have this cool device that I could play not only this game anywhere I wanted to, but all of the games in the No More Heroes series, which, again, I could have played all of them using Steam and check them out with all the cool mods that people have made for them. But again, the convenience of having this thing I could just pick up, turn on, and go straight into the game as opposed to having to turn on my laptop and wait for it to, run everything and, boot everything up and possible slowdowns and all. Yeah, I've been talking too much before I even told you what we opened up with. This was Beam Katana Chronicles from No More Heroes, composed by Masafumi Takada. And this plays at the very beginning of the game, which basically tells you the basics of the plot. You're Travis Touchdown, an otaku who happened to win a beam katana in an online auction, and he gets involved with the United Assassins Association to take on and kill the top 10 ranked assassins to work his way all the way to the top to get his revenge for the death of his family at the hands of the number 1 ranked assassin. And I'll tell you what, this game is violent, cartoonishly so, wacky, perverted, just plain stupid fun, just everything you would expect from a Suda51 game. And the gameplay or the combat is a little, repetitive and kind of mindless in a way. It's still pretty fun, in between the ranked matches, you have missions to go on, you have side jobs to do that include, mowing lawns, picking up trash, collecting scorpions, and you do these in order to earn money to then use to upgrade your beam katana, to, work out and then get stronger, or buy new shirts over at Area 51. And then getting back to the combat, it's consisting of, different kinds of slashes, high and low, you get different techniques to use for slashing and such, and then for finisher moves, you have wrestling techniques. All different kinds of throws, grapples, and suplexes. But the real draw of this game are just the characters, Travis especially, because he's just this cheesy, dorky, anime-loving loser. Possibly even punk-ass loser. And he's just so endearing. And a big part of that, at least for the English version, is the voice actor, Robin Atkin Downs. You could tell he was really having fun with this one, and it was really cool to just hear him grow into this character over all 4 games. That's 10 years playing Travis. Speaking of the other games, we have No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle, which after becoming the number 1 ranked assassin, Travis takes a break, lays low, and then, just all kinds of crazy shit starts happening, and then there's a new, Assassins Association where there's 100 ranked assassins, and so he gets involved again because of Sylvia, who was the one who got him involved with the UAA in the first game, and his love interest. But the real reason why he gets pulled back into it is because his best friend and fellow otaku, Bishop, is murdered, and he wants to kill the mother responsible. That being Jasper Bat Jr., the owner of Pizza Bat, originally known as Pizza Butt in the first game. And then the gameplay or combat in this one was a little different, took a little bit to get used to, like the camera angle's different, and some of the, it's a faster pace, some different controls, but once you got used to it, it was pretty fun. Definitely a little bit more variety in what you could do, and a lot more variety in just the goons you take on. And the assassins you take on this time around are pretty wacky. There's a brain and a giant missile tank thing. There's a scythe Uzi wielding Lolita. You even take on a football player with a bunch of cheerleaders that count for a good half of the assassins, so that's how they kind of get the ranks down. But yeah, you fight him in a giant mech battle where you pilot Glastonbury. And then moving on, we come to what's basically No More Heroes 2.5, Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes. And this one is a total change-up. It's just the gameplay is so different. It's instead of being it's still a hack and slash, but instead of being from behind and all these actions, it's more of just a regular, just straight up top-down arcade-style hack and slash type thing. It's hard to explain, but visually, this game is just, oh man, it's a treat. And the big reason why the visuals are just so crazy in this game is because Travis and the second character, Badman, get pulled into this quote-unquote console called the Death Drive Mark II. And you play through the game that's in the console in the form of a death ball And it's, different kind of games like, action, RPG, racing. But, all the fighting is pretty much the same throughout each one. So, like, there's some differences in, like, little segments in there that are different to each Death Ball game. But otherwise, the gameplay is pretty much the same all throughout. And the really interesting thing about this game is that the story is mostly told through these segments called Travis Strikes Back, which are these green monochrome, like computer-style graphic adventure things where it just shows scenes and just text of Travis and his cat Jean going to find the Death Balls and just all the things just shenanigans that happen between, you're going into the Death Ball and taking on the games there. And you would think, that's a cop-out, but actually, no, they're really cool, interesting, and actually one of the better parts of the game. Before I go any further, I should, talk a bit about Masafumi Takada, but, there's not really much more I can say because he was one of my runner-up Masters of EGM from that first year of doing that, and I also talked a lot about him in the Killer 7 episode. That'd be episode 77, Killer 7. But basically, he did the music for many of the early Grasshopper Manufacturer games, and most recently well known for his works in the Earth Defense Force series and Danganronpa series. And so this brings us to No More Heroes 3, the fourth game in the series, and I'm going to play a track from this game, which is quite possibly one of the best victory themes I have heard. This is Defeated or Dead Victory and Results theme from No More Heroes 3, composed by Jun Fukuda. That was Defeated or Dead, Victory and Results theme from No More Heroes, composed by Jun Fukuda. And yeah, this, totally #1 victory theme in my books. And then in combination with the winning screen, which is basically, in the fights, when you kill your last enemy, everything slows down and becomes, just shades of black and red. And then that big, pixelated kill thing comes up, and then just everything rolls in, and it's an experience. And so is this game. So instead of taking on assassins or video game characters, you're taking on aliens. And they are all extremely strange and cool looking. And some of these aliens are pretty heavy duty and tricky, but, no problem for Travis, because he has the help of the Death Glove, which allows him to use all different kinds of weird techniques, as well as having access to what's called full armor mode, which is where basically he activates this crazy battle suit by yelling Henshin, which gives him access to even more powerful attacks. And there's even some kaiju level aliens, which then requires full armor Travis, which is the full armor mode with even more just crazy robotic bits placed on it and just big giant space battles. It's craziness. And then of course he always has his trusty Bloodberry, which is that beam katana that he won on the internet all those years ago. And this game is a bit of a mixed bag because, it could be considered unfinished because some of the areas you go to seem pretty empty. And one of the stronger arguments for this is because instead of having like each alien boss having their own stage to go through, you go to different points in the, Santa Destroy or any of the adjacent cities, and you go into these arenas to fight enemies this time, and then you go back to the city and then explore around and just do either random things like collecting more scorpions or plunging toilets or mining for crystals, which then become currency, and mowing more lawns. Varying degrees of difficulty of mowing lawns. And yeah, I can understand this because there is a lot of visible potential for these areas that you go to, but they are pretty empty. But for me, that isn't really a big detractor because, the story and the characters totally make up for that, as well as the combat. But yeah, just all the characters like, Travis, the main antagonist Fu, all the different boss aliens you take on, and Gene the cat. Can't forget about Gene. All of them are just great, and yeah, just Travis touchdown. I love the guy, and especially, Robin, having played him like over the course of 3 different games since 2007. This game came out in 2021. Yeah, that truly like just a great performance. So yeah, No More Heroes. Definitely a great start to my 2023 gaming experience, though technically it started in 2022, but, it's pedantics, whatever. But yeah, if you're just wanting a strange, interesting, sometimes frustrating experience, definitely try out the No More Heroes series. The games are occasionally on sale, on both on Steam and Switch, so, hey, why not? And now a bit about Jun Fukuda. I have talked about him before as well. He has largely worked on many of the projects that Masafumi Takada had worked on with Grasshopper Manufacturer, as well as Danganronpa and Earth Defense Force. But he has also worked on other titles such as Resident Evil, The Umbrella Chronicles, Super Smash Bros. Brawl as a music arranger, Digimon Story, Cyber Sleuth, Pokemon Duel, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, World's End Club, and most recently, Pokemon Sleep. Now, while I was playing the No More Heroes series, I did get and play through some other games, such as Yume Nikki Dream Diary, which was a reimagining of the game Yume Nikki with some input from the original creator, and it was okay. And then there was Mixolumia, which I got at the recommendation of an illustrator and comic artist I really like, John Cullen, who goes by Nelik Nodge. And this is a really interesting puzzle game that, I come back to time to time. And then there were 2 horror-themed games that I got in a bundle that I actually feature tracks from in the most recent Halloween episode, Fatum Botula and Paratopic. And then there's the Momodora, Reverie Under the Moonlight, which is a Metroidvania with some Souls-like elements, I guess is how you would put it. And this one was good, interesting. Visually, it's really beautiful, just like really amazing pixel art. But then there was another game I got that was similar to this one, but I liked way more, and that would be Vernal Edge, and that is where our next track is coming from, that being Patche, composed by Plus W Plus. And that was Patche from Vernal Edge, composed by Plus W Plus. And I can honestly say I had fun with this game. You know, definitely one I'll be getting back to eventually, because I have beaten it, almost 100%ed it, but not quite, because there was this weird bug in there that was preventing me from getting, you know, past the 99.5%. But then they just recently patched that out, so now I'm at 100%, so now I can get, hopefully, I think, the secret ending, and then eventually work my way to doing hard mode, because just on normal mode, you know, there were some tough spots there, so I'd imagine hard mode would be even, you know, even tougher, crazier. Because this game is crazy. You have all these different, like, mobility options, different kinds of attacks, and spells to take them on, but, you know, these guys, these bad dudes, they take a lot of hits. But so now, what drew me to this game at first was, of course, the pixel art. It's really beautiful. Like, everything is just, like, really well animated, very well detailed, and then when you're in the quote-unquote world map, it's all polygonal, like kind of think Mega Man Legends looking. And so this game is a very interesting take on the exploration action platformer, you know, Metroidvania, whatever you want to call it. And those mobility options I mentioned earlier, they're not only for battle, they're for exploring these like different floating islands you go to. Though this is where that, you know, Metroidvania genre is kind of switched up a bit, because a lot of these places aren't connected, though there is another dimension that you can find, like a tear-in, and go into, which then takes you to another island or someplace you could not access with, you know, your flying ship. So now a bit about the story is that you play as Vernal, or Vernal, however you want to pronounce that, and she is out on a revenge mission, basically, you know, just like Travis. But she has a revenge set on killing her father, who is basically the big bad in this game, who, due to his actions, caused, you know, some chunks of land to rise into the air and create these sky islands, and, you know, screwed stuff up, and, you know, she blames him for the death of her mother because, you know, yeah, just stuff that he was experimenting on and that she got exposed to. And so, having survived and gotten tough on the lower lands, she makes her way up to the Sky Islands equipped with the Pulse Sword, which has some pretty crazy properties that you find out later in the game, to, you know, kill her dad. And she has no doubts or doesn't second guess herself about this. She is, you know, pretty much just straightforward gung-ho about her mission of killing her dad. She's tough, brash, doesn't really give a shit about what people think about her. You know, now that I think about it, there are a lot of similarities between her and Travis Touchdown, though she is not a dork at all, a little more serious. Now, to get into the music of this game, majority of it is actually pretty ambient. You know, there's some stuff that has like some, you know, breaks kind of strewn throughout, but for the most part, it's just kind of just ambient noise in the background that really complements the beautiful pixel art of the areas that you're exploring. There are some tracks like this one here that are just totally bonkers. And actually, bonkers is a pretty good word to use when talking about the character Patche that, you know, that you're fighting when this track plays. They're not quite sure if they're a she or he. They're probably a they, but they're pretty crazy. They've got all these crazy magic attacks. They'll slash at you, and they're just constantly taunting you, saying things like "over here, dummy," or "why don't you die already?" You know, they're the voice actor that was doing this character was having a fun time. And this fight is definitely one of those ones that kind of tests out your ability to use all these different mobility and fighting techniques that you have learned throughout, you know, playing the game. It's definitely a bit challenging. Took me a couple times the first time I fought them, and then a bunch of times the second round. So yeah, I would definitely recommend playing this game. It's, you know, again, visually just really just stunning. Music is really nice, and it's just kind of a nice unconventional Metroidvania, if that's what you want to call it. And of course, the gameplay is just really fun, both the exploration and the combat, which has, I've seen some places say, is like, you know, Devil May Cry or Kingdom Hearts in the way how it works. Which, you know, I haven't played either of those all that much, but I'll leave it at that. So now I'm going to tell you some more of the games that I got in between, you know, this one and a really big one. I'm pretty sure you know what it's going to be. So first we got Vengeful Guardian Moonrider, which is a love letter to many of the 16-bit action games such as Shinobi 3 and Mega Man X, including others that I'm not too familiar with. The action is tight, the music's some pulse-pounding synthwave, the visuals are cool and gritty, just another really good-looking pixel game. You know, it is a little short, but I feel it's more geared toward those that are wanting to really, like, perfect speedrunning the stages without taking damage at the highest difficulty possible. And then we have Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is one I've always wanted to play, and I got it mainly because it was on Super Sale, And it has been fun to play through the story mode because I'm a bit of a Dragon Ball dork, and seeing all these characters interact in this way is it's pretty fun for me. And I feel I'm pretty competent with fighting games, though I don't think I'm at the level to be able to like play against others competitively, but it's a fun time. And then we have Phantasy Star, the Sega Ages version, which I've been hearing a lot of good things about it on other podcasts, so I finally decided to get it, and I don't regret it. I've still got to beat it. I'm probably about maybe 3/4 of the way, I think. I'm not quite sure, but yeah. If you haven't played this one, I highly recommend you get it. It's only maybe like $8, maybe 5 on sale or something like that. Definitely regret not being able to get this game when I had a Sega Master System. Even like knowing now that the game is just weird and hard without all these fixes that this current version has, but still, it's just be really cool to have been able to play it back then as a kid. So speaking of RPGs, one thing I forgot to mention I got before No More Heroes was Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age, which I got a used physical copy of it at the local GameStop when I was still kind of setting up my Wi-Fi, because I didn't have internet here at home for a while because we had been spurned by Xfinity, but, finally having to do, the podcast, guest recording with podcasts, and getting this thing is that, all right, it's time to cave in once more. So, yeah, kind of my holdover until I could get No More Heroes. And so this brings us to the big bawonga, that $70 game that came out that everybody went crazy for and is still crazy for, and I go back to every once in a while when I'm ready to just explore some more of those deep dark caverns or that beautiful sky. And I'm of course talking about Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. And you're probably wondering, what am I gonna play for you? Something epic? Maybe something that's a little more subdued? Knowing me, I got the wacky stuff. I got the really weird thing I'm gonna play for you, because of course I do. So what I got for you is the Hateno Village Research Lab, composed by Manaka Kataoka and Masato Ohashi. So yes, that was Hateno Village Research Lab from Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, composed by Manaka Kataoka and Masato Ohashi. Because yes, I had to play this one because, I liked the original Hateno Research Lab theme from Breath of the Wild, but I really liked the Akala Research Lab's theme, and so when hearing this and seeing that they took all the best parts of each of those two original tracks and made this wacky wonderfulness, I was hooked. So I don't really feel like there's much I need to say about this game because I'd imagine most everybody has played it. Most everybody. But, it is such a wonderful game, a great love letter to all those wonderful Ghibli films such as Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, Laputa, Castle in the Sky, and of course, Princess Mononoke. And actually, there's a video that you should check out that talks about just this by Beyond Ghibli called Rekindle the Light, how Studio Ghibli inspired Tears of the Kingdom. And it is a very delightful watch. So yeah, when this game initially came out, I was hooked and was playing it for hours at a time. I'd imagine like everybody else. I mean, I just now looked at it, and I've clocked in at least 175 hours. Probably less than most people, but, I go at my own pace. And my playing it has slowed down considerably, but I still go back to it time to time. I haven't actually beaten it all the way. I'm still kind of like doing a lot of the side stuff, filling out the entirety of the depths map. Just putzing about. Eventually, I'll meander my way to taking on Big Boy Ganon. Eventually. Though I will admit here, I have not really experimented as much as I, should be with the crafting system. And this really comes down to my weird need to, just hoard resources, knowing full well that a lot of them are fully replenishable and that I will not have trouble getting these things again to be able to build stuff again. It's just that old RPG mentality of hoarding all these things until I know there's going to be a situation where I'm going to need them. Now, another thing I'll admit here is that, I'm not a crazy guy for Legend of Zelda. I like it. Actually, my favorite games in the series are Link's Awakening and the Oracle games. And then, of course, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are getting up there with those. And that's because, because they broke the mold and are doing something very different from what was been set by things like Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time, which, those are great games, but don't get me wrong, I did enjoy them when I did play them. It's just that, they're not my favorites. And hopefully this doesn't get the mobs coming after me with pitchforks and fire and, chasing me up the, up to the windmill and having me shout, "Why?" like in that Van Helsing movie, but, we'll see. Now, before I say anything else that'll rile folks up, let me tell you a bit about these composers here. They're not the only ones that were involved with this game, but they're the two involved with this track, so I'm going to tell you about thems. Starting with Monika Kataoka, which she started back in 2007 with Wii Fit. And then we have Animal Crossing City Folk in 2008, then Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, Animal Crossing New Leaf, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, which she did some music arrangement, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So a pretty short list, but still some pretty big titles that she's worked on with Nintendo here. And a really cool thing to note here is that she was responsible for the quote-unquote open-air field music in Breath of the Wild. All that interspersed, piano playing that you hear while you're exploring all over Hyrule. And then we have Masato Ohashi, who's a newcomer to composing video game music, only having 2 credits under his belt. First being Animal Crossing New Horizons, he is responsible for the radio jingles, and then Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And, I can't really find much about him before, starting with Nintendo in 2020, though I did find he a SoundCloud account that under the same name looks like the same guy, and the music sounds pretty similar to some stuff I've heard in Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of the tracks are from 5 years ago, so, it's something to check out. And so now I'm going to move on because, again, I don't really feel like I have much that I need to say about Tears of the Kingdom because I'd imagine most folks that are listening to the show have played it. And before I say anything else that may go against the norm of Zelda fandom and get more people upset, if they're already upset, I don't know. But anyway, Tears of the Kingdom, that thing cost $70, so I didn't buy really any new games. One, because, I was really engaged with Tears of the Kingdom, and also because, that's a huge chunk of change to drop on a game, so you don't want to feel like, I got my money's worth out of that. But in August, thanks to a talk I had with fellow podcaster Brian Mosley, I got a device called the Miyoo Mini Plus, which is a emulation handheld, which I am currently using to play many games that I have not been able to play, or revisiting games I have played before and tried to emulate before, but now have this handheld thing, so I don't have to rely on my computer now and be like, I'm having fun with it. And a big part of that fun is, of course, playing and beating games that I did not get to actually play when I had the consoles they were for, or when I started emulating them and never actually really fully got into them. One of these being Castlevania, Aria of Sorrow. And the track I'm going to play for you is the Purgatory Arena, composed by Michiru Yamane. was the Purgatory Arena from Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, composed by Michiru Yamane. Now, this game I did not actually own back when I had a Game Boy Advance. I had Circle of the Moon, and I really enjoyed that one, but for some reason, never got Harmony of Dissonance or Aria of Sorrow. I might have been just, spending all my money on the Mega Man Battle Network games as they were coming out. Though years later, I did emulate them, but I just never got too far. But then, of course, August of last year, as I mentioned, I got the Miyoo Mini Plus, and I loaded, this ROM was one of the many ROMs I loaded up on there, and I blasted right through it. I really learned this past year, I'm a handheld kind of guy. As soon as I got the Switch, I was playing more games that I'd played in the past 10 years, and then, the Miyoo Mini, it just made it so much funner and enticing to play these games that I had started on the computer, and finally just played through them all. And, I'm seriously considering getting a Steam Deck. I've already got all these devices, and I don't know if I'm ready to plop down the cash for that yet, but it's a stewing in there. So yeah, Aria of Sorrow. It was a pretty fun time, and I'm actually playing Symphony of the Night. I had that gauge to kind of compare it to, and it definitely captured a good chunk of that magic. And of course, the music played a big hand in that, because I definitely feel by this point in the Game Boy Advance's lifespan, there was a really solid grasp on the sound hardware and software. And the visuals are a treat. Just the animation on Soma Cruz's walk cycle is, pretty dang cool. Now, as I mentioned, I blasted right through this game. I beat it, actually got the true ending. And this was helpful because shortly after beating it, there was an update to Onion OS, which is a custom OS that you can put into the Miyoo Mini, and it added a DS emulator. It's, it was a little awkward to figure out how to do the dual screen thing, but, it works. And, of course, was able to play Dawn of Sorrow and go right into, story goes right into that from the true ending to that, so that's pretty neat. And actually, speaking of the DS emulator, I'm also playing the other two, Castlevania games that were on the DS. Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia, which it's pretty interesting to kind of go back and forth between all three with the different, magic systems and play styles and the way how they work. It's a pretty fun exercise. So now, getting back to the music, let's talk about Michiru Yamane, which she is one of those composers that I feel like doesn't really need much talked about, because I'd imagine most people that listen to VGM podcasts know who she is, knows what she's done, but let's just go and kind of take a quick look at some of the highlights. Starting in 1988 with the Famicom, with Risa no Yosei Densetsu, and then 89 with Ganbare Goemon 2. In 1990, she worked on SD Snatcher on the MSX, then jumping ahead to her first Castlevania credit, sound design on Castlevania Bloodlines. Then we got Suikoden, then of course Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and then jumping ahead again, we got Castlevania Lament of Innocence and Suikoden 4. And then jumping ahead to something kind of interesting here, she was a voiceover editor for Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. She did music composition and lyrics for Skullgirls, as well as for Bloodstained Curse of the Moon and Ritual of the Night. Was a composer and arranger on Monster Boy The Cursed Kingdom, Castlevania, Grimoire of Souls, and then their latest credit in 2023 is 9 Years of Shadows. And that's what I got for you. So now, before I talk to you more about my experiences with the Miyoo Mini, we're going to get into a game that I was pleasantly surprised to discover existed. This is going to be GUNMM Martian Memory. The track is The Streets of Iron City, composed by Sumito Sato. and that was The Streets of Iron City from GUNMM, Martian Memory, composed by Sumito Sato. And I actually featured a track from this game in episode 88, Cyberpunk, where I really went into talking about, like, how much I love this series of GUNMM, or, Battle Angel Alita as we got it out here. And just my delight and surprise to find out that there was a PS1 game for it, and that it was translated so that I could play the ISO of it on my Miyoo Mini. So a bit of an overview on this game is that it follows the story, or at least the key points of the story, of Battle Angel Alita, all the way up to the end where it is a different ending. So this series has 3 different endings. So first there was the ending in the original series, and then there's the retconned ending for that original series at the beginning of Last Order, which is the sequel manga, and then the ending that we get in this game, which I haven't seen yet. I haven't read up about it yet. I don't want to spoil it for myself. I haven't really played it all that much recently. I need to get back to it and just, see what happens, because, I really do like this series. It's really cool. So in this game, you take the role of Gali, or Alita, as we know her, elsewhere, and it's like a action-adventure RPG type thing, 3D, you're walking around exploring, and then you go into a combat mode to fight, and you can upgrade her, and, it's just kind of a cool little thing. The polygon models are a little rough. A lot of the NPC characters are basically just basic polygons, whereas the main characters have a little bit more detail on them. And that's all I'm going to really get into on this one. If you want to know more, check out episode 88, Cyberpunk, where I go into more detail about the story of Battle Angel Alita, or GUNMM. But a little bit on Sumito Sato, and it definitely is a little bit. He only has 2 credits. There's Mega Tudo 2096, and then this game, GUNMM Martian Memory. So now, what have I been up to with the Miyoo Mini Plus? Well, quite a bit, actually. So like I said, I loaded the thing up with all kinds of different ROMs, especially from CD Romance, where there's a lot of English patched ROMs, and ISOs. But some of the big ones are Super Highlight, Monster World 4, Dead of the Brain, this being the PC98 version, not the PC Engine version. And then for PS1, there's one interesting game called Aconcagua. It's like a point-and-click adventure where you're this group of people stuck on a mountain because of a plane crash, and you can kind of cycle through them to do different tasks. It's I haven't gotten too far with it, but it's really intriguing. And as I mentioned, the DS emulation was added with the recent Onion OS update. So I've been able to play, some DS games, and it's been interesting to work with the, one screen with the 2-screen thing, because you can either switch back and forth between the 1 screens, or you can set it up to where both screens are on there, but one's really tiny and one's, not so tiny enough where you can see things. It's interesting, and there's a mode where you can actually activate a pointer, which is like the stylus. And so most of the games I'm playing don't really require that second screen at all, and there hasn't really been any performance issues, but mainly because I've been sticking with 2D games. And then I got a couple more here that actually I have beaten and actually helps link back into the Switch. So we got Metroid Zero Mission and Metroid Fusion, and I actually played through and beat those while I was on my trip in upstate New York, which prompted me to order the Metroid Dread for the Switch. I was able to find like a used copy for like $30, so that was pretty cool. And I'm right at the last boss of that for Ravenclaw, and that's a tough one. I haven't gone back to it yet, but maybe I might go back to it and beat it for my 4 for February. Kind of a nice, easy one there, huh? Hopefully. And now we're getting to another game that I have beaten already, but there is just so much playability to it in the post-game, and that is Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which came out in 2023. And yes, I have it on Switch, but I am seriously considering getting it for Steam for reasons that I will explain after we listen to this next track, which is Light Switch by Skyblew, with production by Navo the Maestro. And this is, of course, coming from Bomb Rush Cyberfunk.
Hey, yo, Blue, Navo, y'all gonna have to turn them lights down, man. Turn the lights down. Y'all shining too much.
Nah, fam, we only getting started. Yeah, I got the light. He got the light. We got the light. What you know about it? So much light. More light than a spike in your power bill. Or a match when it strike, we devour ill. They don't know how to feel. Their minds cripple, mental game bangers. Never saw losers, but we game changers. Rearrange strangers with the Rickens next mission. Bring the light to your home, electrician. I've been grinding since the basement. If you know, you know, man, you not adjacent. I'm in a league of my own. My soul speaking through poems. Both your speakers are blown for my songs. Let's get it on. I'm ready for the challenge. The dichotomy of dark and light is all about balance. Life's never perfect. Beauty runs deeper than the surface. Album on sale, but the soul not for purchase. Birth this ill style with mild symptoms. It gets them ecstatic. I'm a shock to the system. Warrior, battle scarred, yet these bars hard. Thus became an author, not the R-Vard. I say, the This the hard part, restarted the lost art. Can make a smash from the mouth, I'm an all-star. Like this, like switch, like this, priceless. Like this, like switch, like this, priceless. Hit the light switch if you need a light switch. Like this, right quick for the night shift. I got the light, he got the light, we got the light switch. Sacrifice a ticket to the afterlife. My mission isn't done on earth. Alert the Xerxes versus fuel my appetite. I have the right insight. World needs the facts of life. Healthy as an apple slice. This what real rappers like. International. Took a vacation. Still working on my sabbatical. Casual but tactical.
Listen up, please.
I'm more than a chess piece. Pawn starving a bargain for scraps while the rest eat. Left me to fend for myself. And I conquered where the wild things are with the monsters. As the earth keeps turning. Lies keep turning. My eyes see burning. Fire desire acquired, I'm blessed as 3 sermons. Speaking that breeze, defeat vermin. Billie Jean, you can see the light. Every step that I take, walk with a glow, kept to my fate. Like this, like switch, like this, priceless. Like this, like switch, like this, priceless. Hit the light switch if you need a light switch. Like this, right quick for the night shift. I got the light, he got the light, we got the light switch. Shine on, young king, with the gleam of a colorful dreamer. Clean by the redeemer, queens of radiant demeanor. Beams of light, I know you've seen us. Shine bright through the zeitgeist. Banking on jewels, hit a nice heist. Drop a few gems, then ignite mics. Land of the free, but it comes with a slight price. You are not nice. Rappers wanna battle, not a sweat. Quiet is kept like Naruto's wife. He not a threat, young vet in the place. Masses, brains all trash. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. Darkness embraced like a plague. But our light never will be dim. Better grab a pair of shades. But shine all in your face. I got the light, he got the light switch. Navo, we can't stop shining, fam. It's what we do. Paint the sky blue. Feeling like static shock out here. What? They talk about it.
And that was Light Switch by Skyblew, with production by Navo the Maestro, used in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, originally from the joint album between Skyblew and Navo called Keys of Light, originally released in 2021. And this is one of the songs that's actually featured. I think it actually is the one that starts off the Hideout mix, which for those that don't know, you have the ability to pick which song you want to play. So like you open up your flip phone, yes, your flip phone, which you can access, which tags you have, like and how to do them, map, or the songs that you have collected throughout the different areas. And you can choose an individual one to be playing, or you have the mix. And the mix changes depending on which, part of the city you're in. And so obviously the hideout mix is the mix that you have when you're at the Bomb Rush's hideout, which is a really great place to practice, how to chain combos and multipliers and just see all the members of the Bomb Rush crew just hanging out and, more kind of show up as you find them throughout the city. And depending on which member you're playing as, you can change their movement style from bike, skateboard, or inline skate. And actually, the song is pretty perfect for this, just easygoing, carefree area that is the hideout. So just like with GUNMM Martian Memory, this is not the first time I've featured a song from this game. That would be in episode 88, Cyberpunk, where I did talk about what the game is about and, some of the themings and all. But I will say that it was a fun time to play through this one. And again, I've beaten it. I've got a lot of the post-game stuff to take care of. But yeah, it's a fun time. Though, I follow a couple people on Twitter that have been modding the game. One specifically that goes by the name Beetle, Beetle, has been adding all the different versions of Travis Touchdown, and they've actually been showing their process of modeling them out, actually making the low poly kind of models of them and stuff, and it's been really crazy to see. And they have all the voice clips of them in there, and just it's a fun time to watch. And there's other people been adding in movement mods, wall jumps. I saw recently a ring where you can actually you get into and you're actually moving around in this giant ring. And I am considering getting this game on Steam just to be able to use these mods, probably when it goes on sale. But yeah, there's just so many cool mods being added, so many different characters, like I said, different movement options, areas, the way how things look and such. It's just and music too. So yeah, Very tempting. Another one of those moments where the Steam Deck is looking pretty nice. Which, the next game I'm gonna feature here has the same situation going on. I have it for the Switch, but there's some cool things going on with the PC version that is just like, why? Why does it have to happen? I'm gonna have to get it a second time. So this is going to be World of Horror. And the track I'm gonna play for you is New Game, and this is composed by Sebastion Zybowski, also known as Garoslaw. And that was New Game from World of Horror, composed by Sebastion Zybowski, also known as Garoslaw. And the last time I talked about this game was episode 96, Creeptastic, and it was just before the game was about to come out, so all I really knew was just screenshots, trailers, and gameplay footage of the demo that has been available since like 2019. And I have to say, having been able to play it for these last few months, it is a great game. It may seem pretty simple, just it's all monochrome, 1-bit graphics. It's point and click. It's all just like still frame images, though there is like when you encounter enemies, they have a little bit of movement, just like, kind of moving up and down and like 1 or 2 frames of actual animation. But nonetheless, it's really engaging, and the more you play it, the more options you open up to take on the just mind-shattering horrors that you are put up against. And yeah, this definitely wears its influences on its sleeve, that being the works of Junji Ito and H.P. Lovecraft. The bits of Junji Ito with like the visual style, with some of the events and enemies that you face, as well as some things that reference, Junji Ito's work, such as like holes in the side of a mountain, spirals in the sky, as well as a analog for Ito himself in the form of Mr. Ooh. And then the H.P. Lovecraft side with the old gods, which, depending on which one is chosen, will influence a bunch of things throughout your playthrough. One of these being an effect that will be applied to you throughout your entire playthrough. For example, one will grant you the inability to escape from encounters, and another will make it so that spells, instead of costing you reason, will increase your doom percentage. So yeah, the way how this game works is pretty interesting. So the mode you'll be playing most is custom playthrough, where you get to choose which character you want to play as, which influences some things, which background you're going to have, which also influences a lot of things, as well as which elder god you're going to try to stop. So once all your selections are made, you get plopped into 1984 Shiakawa, to which then you are given the choice of 5 mysteries to take on. And then once you choose a mystery to solve, it's pretty straightforward. There's a main story that you're following and set locations that you can go investigate, though you can investigate other areas to, get items or spells or recruit people. And when you investigate an area, you get what's called an event. And these events can be something as simple as just stating, you're getting tired, you want to do something like rest, take a hot bath, take a run, or some creepy situation where you have to either choose to give a vitality, reason, or experience, and then some where it depends on your level of, you have all these different stats like strength, dexterity, intelligence, whatnot, and your rate of success or failure depends on how high your stat is for that situation. And then, of course, these investigations can result in combat encounters, which, it could be with a, regular person that is just driven mad by some things going on, all the way up to literal, just eldritch horrors. And so those are always fun. So no matter what, depending on if you're investigating or going into a shop or recruiting people and at the school, it'll raise your doom. And as I mentioned with those events that depending if you fail, sometimes it'll raise your doom, sometimes it'll take away your vitality. There's always a take. Like, even spells will take away your reason, which you need because, if you lose all your reason, you go insane, game over. It's just about everything, including things that will help you, like spells, take away from you. But what would you expect when you go to take on an old god that could easily devour your planet in a blink? And yeah, I could keep going, but I've already talked enough about it. I mean, go check it out for yourself. It's rather inexpensive, like only $20, and yeah, it's a fun time. But yeah, like I was saying, that this is one of those games that is also making me think like I need to buy it again on Steam because there are mods for it as well. Yes, there are a bunch of people creating like new enemies to encounter, new events. They haven't created new cases quite yet, as far as I know, but they're coming. But I have yet to unlock all the features that this game has in itself, so it's gonna be a bit of time before I actually get it on Steam. I'm gonna wait for it to go on sale and start playing around with that. Now, before I forget, I really should talk about the visuals of this game. Yeah, like as I mentioned, it is 1-bit, so it's all just like different shades of white, black, gray, or depending, you can choose which palette you can go with, and you have choice of 1-bit or 2-bit, which will add like 4 extra colors to it. But despite this limitation, everything has this really nice detail to it. Like it actually, if it had more colors, I think it wouldn't like hit as hard as it does. It's kind of part of the reason why Junji Ito's work is just so impactful, because he's able to do like just so much with the shading of just the black and whites and grays in between, and yeah. It really goes a long way. Now, the last thing before moving on is the music, which the soundtrack was done jointly by Sebastion, Zybowski, and Thomas Bailey, also known as Questa. And the two of them have very distinct styles, and you can tell, which songs are whose, but they all work together. Where Questa is responsible for a majority of the mystery themes, which each have 2 versions, investigation and combat, which is something cool I should note because, yeah, as you're investigating, you'll hear the theme, but then when you get an encounter, like a combat encounter, it'll slow down, and then it'll go into the combat version of that theme, like, from where the investigation version is playing from. So, and then it'll go right back to where it was before. So it's just a cool bit of dynamic music going on here. And then Sebastion, Arc of Dream, is responsible for some of the incidental stuff, such as the new game theme, the shop themes, as well as some mystery themes. Now, luckily, I was able to find Sebastion on BGMDB under Garoslaw, but he also goes by Arc of Dream. And in 2017, they did Monolith. In 2021, contributed some arrangements to Kero Rhythm Fan Arrangement album. In 2022, did Astronautilus. And then 2023, World of Horror. And with that, we're getting into my last game of the year. And it is actually one I've known about for like the last 8 years and finally got around to playing it and beating it. This game being 2064, Read Only Memories. And the track is Troublemakers, composed by 2Mello. That was Troublemakers from 2064, Read Only Memories, composed by 2Mello. And yeah, like I said, I finally played this game after knowing about it since 2015 when it came out, though I originally discovered it through the soundtrack. I can't remember how I found the soundtrack though. I honestly don't know why it took me so long to get it because, it was available right there on Steam from the get-go, but, here it is. It was just great to finally have context for this great music I had been listening to for the past 8 years. And so now this makes 3 for 3 of mentioning episode 88, Cyberpunk, because I played a track from this game on that episode. And that is very much the setting of this game, though not as dystopian as some other Cyberpunk-themed things, but depending on how you play the game and the route you take, it could very well lead to a dystopian future. Because the character that you play as in this game is pretty much a blank template. You can choose their name, their gender, and then ultimately their attitude in the choices that you make and how to interact with people throughout the game. Which these interaction choices will ultimately influence the attitude of Turing, who is the catalyst of pretty much most of the events in this game. Which Turing is a highly advanced ROM, which a ROM is a robotic personal assistant basically, but Turing here is the first case of machine sapiens. So they are constantly learning and have their own personality, interests, all these crazy things. But of course, like I said, the interactions that you have with Turing, depending on which choices you make, will ultimately influence their attitude towards others and the ultimate outcome of the story. So now, beside Turing, there are a lot of really great characters in this game. Though I gotta say my favorites by far is this pair of punks whose themes this is, that being the duo of Oliver and Chad, Star, I should say. But yeah, the dynamic between these two is great, and yeah, Chad, Star, steals the show right away. And what's great is that the version of, read-only memories I got for the Switch has a little side game called Punks, in which you get to play as them and see, what they were up to just before you meet up with them in the game proper, which is great because I love those guys. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that it was very interesting to play this game at the same time as World of Horrors because they are two very different takes on the point-and-click adventure, and then just total opposites in their visual and aesthetics, though they both are common in the fact that they are callbacks to older games in how they look and play. And sound, of course. And Read Only Memories music sounds fantastic, ranging from stuff like this that calls back to those old ad-lib sound cards to more synth-wavy kind of sound and stuff. And though this song doesn't have it, there is a catchy little melody that is in a lot of the songs, the leitmotif, if you will. And yeah, it's just all really good. It can be as silly as this or really super emotional, and that is to the credit of 2Mello, who I have talked about before, and he has done a combination of, video game soundtracks and original music, starting with his VGM tracks, starting with his VGM works. The first one he did was, of course, Read Only Memories. Then we got Squat Bots, and later Alligator. But most recently, you may be familiar with this name because of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk and his track, I Wanna Know, that was featured in it, which, much like Skyblew's track, was pulled from an album that he had done back in 2021 called Sounds of Tokyo to Future, where he did music that was very much inspired by the music of Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future, but with more of his own spin to it, which is a sequel to another album he did called Memories of Tokyo To, which was more closer to how Jet Set Radio sounded. And you know what? As of July of 2023, he came out with a new album called PhD, Portable Headphone Dance Floor, in which, having listened to some of it, I could say is, sounds like it could very well belong in something like Jet Set Radio or Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. It's a little bit more lower tempo than his usual stuff, but still, it's really, really, really good. And so now one last cool thing I'd like to mention about this game is that the time it takes place is in December, specifically a couple days before Christmas. And actually I was playing this through that month of December, and the last portion of the game takes place during Christmas Eve, which I was playing that portion, on Christmas Eve and actually beat it on Christmas Eve. And then, the next day on Christmas, I had a little extra time and picked it back up because I knew there's a little extra to go with it, and I got the mode Endless Christmas. So I was playing that mode, Endless Christmas, on actual Christmas Day, which was pretty dang cool. And now looking at it, I'm kind of glad I waited as long as I did to play it because the sequel, Read Only Memories, Neurodiver, is set to come out sometime, I think, spring of this year. So instead of playing it when it initially came out and then having to wait 10 years for the sequel, hey, I only have to wait just half a year, hopefully even less. And I'm pretty stoked for it because visually it's a big upgrade, and the music sounds like it's being done with the YM2608 to make it sound like it's, on the PC98. So there may be a good chance that you'll hear me talking about this game during my next year games of 2024. Time will tell. And, speaking of time, it's about time for me to start closing things up here. So I'd like to thank you all for coming into VG Emporium and listening to me attempt to talk about games that I really liked this last year. I can guarantee you that next week's episode is going to be a lot more exciting because it's going to be another guest one with St. John of Nerd Noise Radio, which we are going to be nerding out about really good Sega Genesis tracks. So yeah, it's going to be a good time, and I'm pretty sure most of you know where to find that episode when it comes out. But hey, if you're new to the shop, you can find VG Emporium on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and or Audible, which if you're wanting to dive back all the way to the beginning of VG Emporium, unfortunately, those places don't have those episodes anymore. But thankfully, you can find all 100 plus episodes at vgemporium.wordpress.com, as well as on TerraPlayer, which is a really awesome hub for all kinds of video game podcasts. And then, of course, if you want to follow VG Emporium, you can go to all the different social medias like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then there's also a Discord, which you can find a link for that in the show notes, where you can leave some feedback or, make topic suggestions or even make a special order, which is a song request, which you can also send to vgemporium@gmail.com. And so, yeah, I'd like to thank you all again for coming into VG Emporium, video game music and more, and hope you decide to stop in next week.